Hi, I'm Laura Campbell. I'm the Senior Vice President of People Development, and I'm very pleased today to welcome Sam Jenniges, author of Recognition Rebooted. Sam is a culture builder, a capability developer, and a retention strategist. As an organizational development and leadership specialist, she focuses directly on coaching and upskilling leaders because they have the most influence on helping associates stay with you. Some of her clients include Microsoft, Campbell's Soup Company, Pfizer, Merck, and Penn State University. A warm welcome to Sam. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, I'm so happy to be here. I was a guest at a Fortune 500 company's employee recognition event a few years ago. And there were about 2,000 employees at this event, and it was decorated. There was this open bar, appetizers, a sit-down dinner. I felt like I was going to a wedding, party favors. There was an elaborate video created for this whole thing, and then even a local celebrity emceeing the event. And there was a band afterwards. The CEO himself showed up for this, someone no one ever gets to meet. It was an elaborate, well-planned, generously budgeted, fabulous party. Few companies have a budget to recognize 5-year anniversaries like this, and maybe even fewer in the future. And I think that may be a good thing. Let me tell you why. The conversation leaving this event with the person who invited me went something like this. I said, "What a fun annual event, wow. Yeah, it was so fun. Food, drinks, music, you got to see your coworkers, yes." And so then I asked, "Do you feel recognized and appreciated?" He said, "Not really, but it was a great party." Why didn't he feel recognized and appreciated? You're going to feel kind of like a jerk if you complain, right? So why didn't he feel that? He wasn't complaining, he had a great party. There are many, many positives to recognition events, whether they're elaborate like this or even small ones that are even lower budget. There's many, team building, we get great food, it feel good event. What happens from the company standpoint is after planning, after the expense, the company will check the recognition box. And then the managers will say, "Oh yeah, we do recognition, so I just kind of need to be nice to my people and I need to thank them on occasion and just be reasonable human being because we already do recognition. Remember that big thing we did? So we did that." But the employee will check, "It was a great time" box. A lot of stuff is happening with recognition, but we are not hitting the target, no matter how elaborate it is. And according to Forbes, employee recognition is a $46 billion industry with almost no impact. There are few things as powerful as a simple act of letting someone know when their work makes a difference. In my organizational development work and partnering with clients in all kinds of industries, I found how little that simple, powerful act is actually occurring. And in coming from places with some sort of employee recognition, it just seemed that something wasn't quite right. The current state of employee recognition I thought was summed up best by one executive, and he said this: "We do a lot with employee recognition, but as with a lot of companies, it isn't always seen that way by the employees." This speaks to the major disconnect happening between organizations with very good intentions and employees feeling recognized. You're not alone as you're watching this. If you sometimes see this disconnect, who's delivering it, when it's getting delivered, is it even getting delivered at all, where? A little bit of a disconnect there. I'm here today to enable Benedictine and you personally to get good at delivering recognition to your associates so that you can hit that target and so you don't have that disconnect. And we're going to keep it very simple. We want to make sure that we hit that target. And I am going to go out on a limb and say that executive directors of nursing managers, executive directors, culinary directors, anyone directing the work of others, I'm going to go on a limb and say you never start the day by saying, "I wish there was more. There wasn't so much time in the day. I wish I didn't have all this time." Right? You're way too busy. You don't have time for that. I get that. So what we know is that recognition needs to be easy and not feel like another to-do. because it won't happen. There are amazing recognition systems out there, but they're not being used because it requires a lot of me. I might have to track something. I have an elaborate system. These things are not happening because people won't actually enforce them. More importantly, though, recognition needs to have results. And that requires a little training. That's why we're here today. So, because recognition doesn't get done consistently, only 14% of the organizations actually train their people in how to get good at this. And in fact, we as leaders are expected to be naturally good at this. So there's training and everything else, but you're supposed to just know how to do this. So we can change that. So we want to increase that percentage, and you're doing that here today. So thank you for calling this out as something that you really need at Benedictine. So good job by you. Here's what I'm talking about today. We're going to cover 4 things. Why it matters. We're going to use a simple tool. We only have 1 hour. So I chose one tool that has the highest impact for the lowest effort. Because let's face it, we don't have a lot of time for effort. And I'm going to invite you to rethink your notions of what you think of as recognition and the impact. Remember, it's not having impact, so we need to do something differently. And finally, there's 4 fundamentals of employee recognition that will get weaved throughout. So what is the target? We want to inspire our associates to give their full effort. We want to inspire them to love working with you. And we want them to stay with us. We want all of these things. And we don't always have to love our job. Some of the jobs aren't fun, right? We don't have to love the job, but we can love working with our leader, or we can love working with a company. So that's what we want to aim for. If we want to inspire people through recognition, we need to get this right. And recognition isn't the only thing that helps with these things, but it's a big thing. This is Gallup. 3 out of 10 employees said this. In the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work. Only 3 out of 10 would say that. Given the low number of employees who strongly agree with this element, it may be one of the greatest missed opportunities for organizations to improve engagement and performance. And what's more, employees who do not feel adequately recognized are twice as likely as those who do feel adequately recognized to say they'll quit in the next year. In addition, engaged workers are more mindful of their surroundings. So recognition is helpful with engagement. That's why we're hitting on recognition. They're more mindful of their surroundings, and they are more aware of safety procedures. So when Gallup collected data, they looked at the healthcare sector, and their engaged employees are more diligent about keeping their coworkers and their customers protected. And in fact, highly engaged business units, according to Gallup, can have a 70% decrease in employee safety incidents and a 58% decrease in patient safety incidents if we can get that engagement instead of 3 to 10, 6 and 10. Recognition can help with that. Recognition equals retention. So who best to take this opportunity? We've already did the spoiler alert in the beginning that you leaders have the most influence. Gallup says that 70% of a team's engagement depends upon their manager year after year after year. Hundreds of thousands of data, they continue to find this. The person directing the work of others who knows the work, they have the most influence on whether people stay or not. So when we say the most influence, we mean whether they stay, whether they perform well, and whether they advocate for the company. We need our associates to refer their friends to work with us. And when they feel engaged, they do that. So with all that influence, Gallup also did another survey, and this continues to be the case with recognition. And they said, who do employees want to hear from with recognition? It makes sense, right? Employers report that the most meaningful recognition does come from first their manager, then a leader or CEO, then the manager's manager, customers, so that I guess in your case this would be the residents, or maybe their families, and then what's last? Peers. Organizations spend a lot of energy on peer recognition. And so when we ask, will you feel adequately recognized? The answer here would say, if you're spending energy on peer recognition, it's probably not going to do the job. So we need to focus on the leaders of this. I will also say this, in the future as you plan any kind of recognition, I'll also add this. One thing about peer recognition, I've yet to find a peer recognition program that's sustainable. Because what happens is, as good as the peers using it, it can have a feel-good moment. But what can often happen is it can expose your organization because people eventually say, I wish my manager would talk to me like this. And then we expose our organization for that gap there. So best to focus on helping the managers be good at this, which is what you're doing today. That simple, powerful act of letting someone know their work makes a difference. Okay, so how do we do this? All of you in charge of other people, how are we going to do this? We'll use a simple tool. But first, let's talk about the first fundamental of recognition, and that is rewards are not the same as recognition. We treat them the same, we say them. We need to recognize people, and our mind immediately goes to a reward often. And so then all of a sudden recognition is decided by who has the budget. And we don't need to get that complicated with that. We don't need a budget to recognize to be effective. In fact, your Grammy was really on to something. So the truth about this is we're not talking about elaborate parties or fanfare, big events, public recognition. Most don't feel adequately recognized anyway when we do that. Those don't hit the target. Rewards tend to have a very short shelf life. And we'll talk about how when we do rewards, big or small, how we can make them have a longer shelf life. But that's not the first thing we should be doing. We need to be focusing on recognizing our team. So staff shortages and turnover and new associates, we have to be adaptable with recognition, and we have to get good at this. So what I'm talking about is in the moment recognition, anytime recognition, not waiting for things. How do we do that? Here's how we recognize someone. So we recognize someone by, we notice a valuable impact that they had, and then we're going to communicate it to them. So shortly, I'll show you some examples, and then you'll get a chance to practice this on your own with your teams as you're watching this video. So we notice valuable impact, and we communicate it. Valuable impact simply means some difference someone made, and it's going to be different for everyone. It could be helping a coworker who feels stuck with a task. It could be an idea for a new process for safety, something that big. It could be as simple as a small act of kindness to a resident that wasn't in their job description at the moment. Then you communicate that back. You echo that back. You have the autonomy to determine what that is. It doesn't have to be, I save the company money. It doesn't have to be like that. So what does it look like? So I'll go through 4 examples, and then in between each example, you can pause the video, discuss among your group what it is, and here's how it's going to work. Think of a traffic light as your guide. A yellow light, the example I give, has some meaning. That was nice. Green light made their day. They want to share it with someone else. It's inspiring. They're going to go home and tell someone, or they're going to tell a coworker or a friend. Red light, blah, very little meaning. And then there's one more. Sometimes we do things unintentionally that are actually demotivating, where it'd be better to do nothing. We're going to call that one a flat tire. All right, let's go through our first example. Here's the example. Thanks, Sophia, for staying beyond your shift while we waited for Raj. I know you're busy and I appreciate it. Go ahead and pause and decide as a team whether or not it's a red light or a yellow light. Okay, tell me what you think it is. Is that a red light or a yellow light? Yellow. Some meaning. Okay, great. It depends how much you get in a day, right? How many times, if no one ever thanks you, you're really hungry for, or if someone always says, yeah, some meaning. There was some meaning there. It's common courtesy. It's what we should be doing normally. Everyday words of affirmation. Remember, 3 in 10 do not feel adequately recognized. So we have to up our game a little bit. All right, how about this one? Thanks, Sophia, for staying beyond your shift while we waited for Raj. I know you're busy, I appreciate it. It is such a help when our nurses and nurses' aides pitch in like that. In fact, Rita stayed beyond her shift 3 times last week. I appreciate it. Is that a red, yellow, green, or a flat tire? Pause and go ahead and talk among yourselves and decide what that is. What do you think?
It seems weird to throw in Rita to recognize
Yeah.
Sophia.
I was gonna say red or getting motivated.
Yeah.
Yes,
I don't
yes.
care about-
Yeah, why? Why? Tell me why is that demotivating?
I don't need to hear about Rita.
Thank you.
The focus should be on me.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's not personal. It became it needs to be about me. Well said, Dennis. Exactly. So this happens all the time though, and it's because sometimes people are hesitant to get personal. And it's awkward. It might be, I really appreciate it, and then you're like, so we want to keep talking. So just stop talking when we land there, and then we're back to it having some meaning, right? Instead of demotivating, right? It happens all the time, and tensions are good. Let's try the next one. Thanks, Sophia, for staying beyond your shift while we waited for Raj. I know you've been busy. I appreciate it. Hey, while I'm here, will you make sure to check with the resident in 103 and let her know I'll be stopping by this afternoon to answer questions? Red, yellow, green, or demotivating? Go ahead and stop and pause your tape and talk amongst yourselves. All right, what do you think?
Blah.
Blah. Any others?
Their mind had to shift to a different thing then.
Yeah.
Make sure to check on resident.
Yes.
Say you lost any recognition that happened because now
That's
it's
right.
like, remember, I need to do this.
Yes.
Plus you gave them another task to do now.
Yeah. Was I there to give you that recognition? No. I wasn't there to do that. The reality is, what I probably did was saw you, I needed you to do something, and then I remembered, that's right. I need to thank her for staying late. Because that's how our world works. We don't have all this time. So what could we do differently to make this effective? What if we don't have time to separate these? What do we do?
Would it work to flip them around?
Yes. How does that sound? Tell me how that would sound to you, Tabitha.
It would sound better.
Oh, excuse me. I called you Tabitha. I beg your pardon. Kate.
I would ask for the task first, and then say, "Hey, I wanted to thank you for
Yes.
being here."
Perfect. Now it's going to have meaning to it. Wow, I got a task, and you're also saying something nice. While I'm here, I don't want to forget. I want to thank you so much for that shift. Right, so it doesn't feel like we're setting them up. So that can actually be really demotivating for people when we get a to-do with a recognition. I had a boss, back in the day of voicemails, I had a boss who left me voicemails all the time about the value of my work and never added it to do. I would run a mile every day for her, so it was really great. So that's a good lesson. So what's the main lesson here?
Keep it about them.
What's that?
Keep it about them.
Keep it about them. Don't add it to do at the end of a recognition. Flip it, right? All right, excellent. Let's do this next one. Hi, Sophia, I want to pay you a compliment. Thank you for staying beyond your shift while we waited for Raj yesterday. I know you're busy. Your staying 20 minutes made the difference in the resident care, especially with Mr. Rodriguez, who's still getting comfortable with the transition here. I noticed he didn't feel a gap in care. It would have been harder without you yesterday, so grateful for your help and glad you're on the team. Thank you. What's that? That's go ahead and pause. Pause the tape and talk among yourself. What is this one?
Made their day.
Yes. Why?
Specific.
Impact. What's the impact here?
That it helped the resident.
Yes. Yeah, no gap in care. And I did that. I made that difference for someone. And you told me that. You noticed, you saw me, you noticed me. I feel seen. This hits very directly to belonging as well. I feel like I belong here because you see my work. I'm doing good work. You're echoing the value back to me. What else is different?
What I like about that too is it's just 20 minutes, but it made it sound so much bigger than 20 minutes with the way it was worded.
Mm-hmm. Because and those 20 minutes were big, weren't they? So great point. What else is different about this one? How did I start it?
You introduce
Yeah.
the conversation.
Mm-hmm. I introduced the conversation. When we can prime people for what's coming, we're more likely for them to hear and take in the recognition and have that benefit and that impact. A little bit more on that later. It can be this simple and energizing. Now, it looks like a lot of words here, so let's pull this together a little bit. This is what we mean by recognizing people's work. It isn't hard, but there is a little research to this. There's research to this. These are the components of effective recognition. We have to be sincere. You brought these up already. It has to be sincere, personal, impact, timely, and specific. Another way to look at this, actually, let's talk about it being truthful and not timely. Beg your pardon. So truthful, I changed it to truthful because being timely was only one thing, but a lot of recognition isn't necessarily truthful. Couldn't have done it without you. Or you do a team recognition and maybe one person doesn't pull their weight. And so everyone else standing up there is saying, this isn't truthful. You're kind of watering it down and it doesn't hit that target. I don't feel adequately recognized. So we want to make sure that it is truthful. That 20 minutes, that was the truth. So delivering our message using these tips, so we have an acronym for you to remember this in terms of tips, is effective. That will get you the green light that we're really going for. And one of these is especially inspiring, and I think Kate, you brought this one up, and actually we could break this down a little. I think you already broke it down, but if you had truthful, it'd be a lot harder without you, if you're thinking that. And in impact, no gap in care, Kate brought that up. And I know you've been busy, so it was really personal, sincere, you're grateful for the help, and then the specific was they stayed 20 minutes late. Okay, one of them is the most important here, and that is the impact, because this is the piece that tends to go missing in recognition. So we say, thanks for staying late, I appreciate it, the examples we just went through. What a difference it is when we can say the impact that it had, that there was no gap in care for Mr. Rodriguez. So this is the missing piece, and it is what inspires full effort. It is what helps people feel seen and that their work is valuable. Because you know the residents' favorite treats, they feel seen and special. Because you worked that extra shift, there wasn't a gap. Because you helped that resident feel okay about dropping their sandwich for the third day in a row and help that person feel okay really mattered because of she's frustrated with her shaky hands. That is what we're talking about, is getting down to that level of personal and helping notice that. So whatever they accomplished, you're mirroring back. Employees are hungry to hear the impact. Watch their faces when you go that extra step. So recall the first fundamental, rewards are not the same as recognition. Recognition is not the same as rewards. And now include a meaningful reward when you do the tips, and now it's going to matter. If you happen to do a $5 gift card or whatever it is you might do, that's going to matter now. So we don't want to front load with reward. We want to front load with the impact and the tips. And then if you happen to do rewards, it's going to have some meaning. So we have our second fundamental. How you deliver recognition, the tips, is much more important than what you deliver. Meaningful recognition does not have to be a shocker. Okay, it's going to be your turn. We're going to put this into practice. And in your groups, I'll let you know when you should pause and go ahead and work this out. You're going to help each other so that you can get good at this. But we'll use the tips, and I'm going to refresh your memory, and then I'll have a guide for you. So for now, we're focusing on what we're going to say to an employee. Let's call this a verbal, for the moment, let's call it a verbal recognition. This is how we're going to deliver it. Okay, so we're going to use the tips. Think of a key contributor to recognize and write it down. So either on your device or grab a piece of paper. Let's plan on using these and break it down. So first one, tips. T for truthful. If it's not truthful, it will have the opposite effect. Think of a nurse's aide, culinary staff, someone who reports to you who's done something impactful recently. So not last week, not 6 months, long forgotten, but something recently. Remember, the impact makes the difference. So no gap in care because of the resident's treat. P for personal. Make it about them. Don't drag other people into this. This is more about what not to do. Sincere. If you are truthful with what you saw, it will sound sincere. So it's not about making a funny joke or a filler, and even if it feels a little bit awkward, that's okay. It will come through if you're sincere. And finally, S, specific. So instead of thanks for helping with the resident today, thanks for noticing your coworker needed a hand with Mrs. Lansing this afternoon. What a difference. I saw you, I saw that. This matters because the person knows what you're talking about then, and it will sound sincere, and it won't sound like you're making something up generically or you're checking that box. Okay, here they are, the tips, timely and truthful. To do this, the best way to do this, and the order doesn't matter. It can be impact first, specific first. It doesn't matter what the order is, but it's sort of a way to remember in your head. But if we don't want to remember all 5 of these, a way to remember that is start with specific. What specific thing did they do? What impact did it have? That's all you have to do. And if you are telling the truth, the rest will follow. So what one specific thing did they do? And get specific, get personal, and what impact did it have? So think of this as verbal. You're going for that green light, and it literally will take you about 2 minutes to write this down. I know you can think of someone. Think of someone this week, maybe the next time you'll see them. Is it Wednesday? Is it Friday? But target when you're going to see them. Be ready for it. And so write down what you would say on your device or a piece of paper. And then once you do that, look back on this slide of tips and make sure you've covered the bases with how you're going to word it. Just check off each one and make sure you've covered that basis. And then you'll get a chance to practice that later. For now, go ahead and take 2 minutes, pause this, take 2 minutes, and individually write this down. And then we'll check against this with one of our coworkers. Great. This is what we're going for. We are going for that green light here. And what I'd like you to do, it looks like there's 5 of us in the room. I want you to practice this because this is the only way to get good at this. So I'd like you to practice this with someone next to you, or you can go in trios if you want. And here's what I'd like you to do. Give each other feedback and keep people whole, but be direct and be honest with them. If this is going to do that, is this going to get an eye roll, or is this going to get a thumbs up and it's going to inspire me? Are all of the tips, can you identify all of the tips? They're especially impact and specific, and is it truthful? So make sure you help your partner get good at this. So let's go ahead and pause and take a moment as a group and practice with one another and give each other feedback. Okay, I hope that went well for everyone and you got a chance to practice. How long did this actually take us to do? And we're new at it. 2 minutes, and we're new at it, right? And you maybe didn't even have to write it down, maybe you did. Does this feel doable to you by the next time you see someone? Now for this practice, we did a verbal interaction. Do what's right for you. Text messaging are awesome. It's awesome to get a text message with a compliment. Hey, I noticed this today. That is so great, especially when we don't add a to-do with that, right? Or if you have internal chat or anything like that, those are the best. To just get that for no reason out of the blue, it's really wonderful. And for those who are maybe on the more shy side, that's especially great. And those who have a voicemail, that's really great. So whatever method, it doesn't have to be verbal at all. And do what I would say is make it easy for you. As long as you're getting it, you're effective, make it easy for you to deliver it so that you can do it more often. It's easy to just quick do a couple of text messages. So it takes less time when we do more of this and we get better at this. So think about this also. What does this do for us when we get good at this? What if we're doing this every day with one person? What will that do for us as leaders? It not just lifts others, but it lifts us up too. We get good at it, and people will think of you as the best manager ever. And remember, you have all of that influence. So as long as you are using the tips, as long as you're truthful, and as long as you're specific and you say the impact, they can learn the tips and know you're doing the tips, and it will still have an impact. Be like, I see the tips there. That's right. But if I'm checking the boxes, it's self-correcting, right? If I'm truthful, then I mean it. So isn't this fun? So I loved your transparency, Laura, with telling someone, I'm going to recognize you. I think that's just great. So it lifts others up too, to the benefit. So let's remember our goal. Inspire others. We want them to give their full effort, love working with you, and stay with you. So what would it be like if everyone at Benedictine was recognized like this on a routine basis, what would that be like? Go ahead and pause and have a conversation about that if you like. So before we talk about some of the common practices of employee recognition that can be demotivating, we hit that a little bit, I would like to talk a little bit about the other side of recognition. What about receiving recognition? We talked a little bit about sometimes it can be a little bit awkward. Not everyone receives recognition well. Past experiences come into play, and believe it or not, there is a lot of baggage with people receiving compliments. And so we really want to raise some awareness around that, like how do we handle that when that happens? Because you can be taken off guard. There's 4 main responses that people have to receiving recognition. And as leaders, be prepared and be aware of this, because it can be really frustrating when you are thrilled to give someone some positive feedback, and you can even interchange recognition with positive feedback if you want. To give someone praise and they don't receive it well. We can be taken off guard, but don't let that stop you. So for example, let's go through the 4. The first one, these people love it, thank you. They may even agree with it. They're so happy, but they're not uncomfortable with recognition. They love it. These people are cool with recognition, their response to it. Another one is they can't get enough. They maybe add even more to that compliment. They seek it out. They're going to dissect it. They want to talk about it. Any method works. They're waiting for you. They cannot get enough. So those people crave recognition. Those are the easy ones and the super fun ones, right? They're looking for it, they're cool with it, it makes it all easy. Okay, and then there gets a little trickier. So then we have people, when you recognize someone, they might say, what do you want from me? I'm suspicious. What's your agenda? In this case, it's really important to be specific and not too generic so they believe you. They don't believe you. You can let people know ahead of time, I'm just here to compliment you, that's all. I want to give you some positive feedback that I heard. That's it, nothing else. This is all I'm here to do. Help them. When we're doing this routinely, they might start to even question, well, what's going on? I'm hearing a lot of praise. I'm hearing everybody else what is going on around here? What has changed? Why? And if that happens and people are suspicious, just tell them the truth. We realize we need to get better at this, and so you're going to see more of it. Get used to it. We really value you, and we just have to get better at it. I want you to know how much we appreciate your work. So yeah, you're going to hear more of it. Okay, so those people, they're cautious with recognition. And then we have some people who can't take a compliment. They deflect. They don't want to be in the spotlight, not even privately. Let me give you a quick example of my husband. So my husband, it's not even in his occupation, is something completely different, but he single-handedly remodeled our entire basement. And he did it, it's such a beautiful job, and got it done. And so I'm thinking to myself, oh yeah, tips, I'm gonna go recognize my husband, right? So I really meant it though, and I just very truthfully said, Dan, all that work that you did, it really saved us so much money. The kids are using the basement more, and it looks beautiful, and I just want you to know how grateful I am that you took all of your evenings to do this. His response, yeah, it took me long enough. So some people cringe with recognition, but I asked him later, I noticed you really cringed there with that recognition. He goes, I did? Yeah. So do you not want me to I didn't say recognize, do you not want me to notice those? And he goes, no, that was really nice of you. So don't let it stop you. It's the way we approach people. We aren't there to embarrass them or make them cringe, but we may naturally want to avoid people who are cautious or people who might cringe with recognition, but please don't let that stop you. Even if it's not received well, our job is still to not lose that opportunity in the moment. So if someone, it took me long enough, or what do you want from me, or, they're still suspicious, we can simply let them know, you deserve to know it. So I just wanted to share that with you, and then move on to another topic. Just let them know. You don't have to get into it at all. Just let them know they deserved it, and move on. And recognize that some people do have some baggage with that. still has meaning to them. This will require you to draw on some of your leadership skills to dig in a little bit so that you're not taken off guard and so that you can handle that kind of rejection. It is a bit of a rejection to get that. So the way we approach, though, matters. It matters. For example, are there any scarier words than this? Do you have a minute? I don't know, or a quick chat? Especially when it's coming from your boss, all that influence. No matter how effective you are, you could be a star employee. I don't care how strong you are going to feel like you did something wrong. When your boss says that to you, we feel like, what's wrong? We immediately go to that fight or flight. Most employees will think they're doing something wrong. So I don't know how you feel, but that's definitely how I feel. So let's not scare people, for starters, especially with recognition. Recognition should never be a relief. It should actually feel like a joy from the beginning. So some people do these corny things. They try to trick people and pretend there's something really bad happening, and then they say something good. That's not funny, actually. It's just not. It's dysfunctional, but I think there is that awkwardness around this. So we just have to do it and just get better and better at it and go with it. So it should always be, so remember to start with, I need to thank you for something. I heard something great and I want to tell you about it. I want to compliment. Prime people to hear it rather than, do you have a minute, can we chat? So let's all just agree never to use these words again. I think we can do that, right? Do you have a minute? What about other common approaches to recognition that may not be as effective? 40 to 60% of the population is introverted, and that means their motivation comes from within, not from others. And the extroverted population, 40 to 60% of that, their motivation comes from others, being around people. Some people do not want that population of introverted people and some extroverts do not want to be called out in front of other people. Recognition as we know it does have an extrovert bias. That's why when we think of recognition, not only do we tend to think of rewards, we think, what public place? Where can we announce this? Can I put this on the team agenda? Because that's what we're used to, but also we're packing a lot of agenda items into that recognition, and it needs to be about the person. So for some, it can be energizing, and you know who they are when we call them out in front of other people. How are we going to inspire employees and make them, inspire them to stay and give their full effort when we're making them feel self-conscious? One person said this to me. Too often, admission to getting recognized, the fee to admission to getting recognized is public embarrassment, cringing, or just getting it over with. Opposite effect, demotivating for about half the population. I'm extroverted and I prefer private recognition. So I caution you on hitting your employees with public recognition or surprises if they don't prefer it. So my recommendation is let's flip that. Instead of the default being public recognition, where we can go wrong, flip it to private. Could be one-on-one, it doesn't have to be in an office, it can be text, email, voice, whatever works for us. But make it one-on-one. You can't go wrong with that, even with extroverted people. And if you're doing an email, you can copy people, you know best. And even introverted people are okay with that. We just want to make sure that we don't demotivate people. And so start with private, our default to be private recognition. So change the thinking. I invite you to rethink that common notion of public recognition, because we are really putting in organizational agendas into that. Now our outcome is we want people to stay. That affects the bottom line, no doubt. People working their best affects the bottom line, no doubt. But we need to really start with the employee, and it needs to be about them. So our first fundamental, rewards are not the same as recognition. The second fundamental, how we deliver is more important than what we deliver. And the third fundamental is doing nothing is sometimes better than doing something. Not every little bit counts, not really, not when it comes to recognition. We just need to do it well, stay focused, and not be tempted by all these other distractions that don't hit the target. Stay focused, get personal, because especially now, we've got to be able to do it in the moment, be really flexible, adaptable with it, because people are coming and going, and employees are consumers and they're shopping. So we need to get really, really good at this. So doing nothing is sometimes better than doing something. Doesn't let us off the hook though, but it is better to do nothing than to have a flat tire and directly lower engagement. It's better than watering down a recognition with a to-do at the end. It's better to do nothing than getting defensive if your direct report cringes when you give recognition. It's better to do nothing than embarrassing someone who does not like public recognition or surprises. These can actually be demotivating. So when in doubt, use the tips as a way to communicate, do it privately, and do it routinely. Rewards have their place, but tips must always come with it. Your team members who pay attention to the residents, their safety and well-being, your associates who notice how something can be improved, those who lift their coworkers up and model professionalism and good care, those who get the work done, those who live your values, those who refer a friend to work at Benedictine, these are your superheroes. And this needs to be reinforced routinely, personally to people, and the tips are here to guide you. And we have our fourth fundamental. Recognition is an invaluable tool available to every leader to help inspire full effort, love working with you, and staying with you. This is available to you. That 70% influence that leaders have, I think, is a good thing. It means you have a shot. You have a really good shot at helping keep people. So the tips are available. It's this one tool that we can use starting right now. You don't have to wait for a rollout in the organization. You don't have to wait for a budget. You don't have to wait for executive approval. You don't even have to wait for your own boss to get good at this. You even have the words written down today to get you started. So make it easy for yourself. Get it, be effective at it, use the tips, make it easy for yourself. Plan another one right away, maybe in your head. And start, if it were me, and I'm kind of new at this, I would start with the ones who are cool with it and those who crave it, because that's easy and fun and build some momentum, and then build in the others. There are few things as powerful as a simple act of letting someone know when their work makes a difference. Some of us are naturally good at this, about 1 in 10, and some of us are still learning. Good for you, you're going to get better at it. One particular manager I had transformed our organization through this. First, she helped transform us as individuals on a team, and we really loved that. We gave our full effort, we stayed, and we loved working with her. And then we helped others, and then it built and built. So then eventually I did talk with peers the way my manager talked with me, but it wasn't a program. We just naturally did that until there was so much trust in the organization through this simple, powerful act of recognition that I'm talking about today. I knew my work made a difference because she told me so regularly. She called it recognition. I called it Tuesday or Wednesday or Friday. Okay, let's do a really quick 60-second reality check. So we're going to test our knowledge, and feel free to make this a group thing, and usually in groups you can just do a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We won't have to pause for anything. Let's just go through this. I will tell you it is going to stretch you a little bit on a couple of them because we didn't completely cover them, but use your best knowledge based on what you learned today. So let's go for it. Ready? Here we go. First one, thumbs up or thumbs down. It is better to wait until I am unnatural to recognize someone. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Very good, thumbs down. If you said thumbs down, you got it. Second one, recognition should be delivered equally to your team members. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs down, very good. It's a little bit tricky, right? We want to be equitable, not equal, right? What matters to that person, but we don't have to track it. Don't worry about writing everything down. All right, that was tricky. I need money to recognize someone. Thumbs up or thumbs down? If you said thumbs down, you got that one. How about this one? It is demotivating when a key contributor see poor performers get recognized. Yeah, that's right. It is demotivating, right? What is that? It didn't adequately recognize me. You can't go wrong with giving a reward. Thumbs up or thumbs down? All right. If you said thumbs down, you got that. A public recognition is the best place to start. Thumbs down, good, love it. All right, effectively delivering recognition helps put us in a state of gratitude. Yeah, if you said thumbs up, you got that. That's right, we didn't cover that, but you get that. Recognition is for everyone. It is a tool to help people stay and deliver their best work. Yeah, great. Nice job. If you said thumbs up, you got that one as well. Okay, what questions do you have?
So if we are doing this one-on-one, how can it help with employee culture or morale if it is being doing one-on-one, if you really want to try and help affect a whole organization?
Right. So how will it help with that one? If we're only doing one-on-one, how does that build across the organization if we're not really having these public affairs, right, about recognition? And that's a great question. So one-on-one, we start there and we build. Remember, we want to keep our agenda to that individual and start our one team at a time. Think globally, act locally. But the other stuff isn't really working, that public stuff. So we know that's not working. But what we can do is when we do one-on-one, people will start to catch on. You'll start to notice a difference in all of the employees. So it's very tempting to keep it public so the rest of the organization knows we're doing recognition. But this is a program. Doing it this way is a program that can work. Focus on the individual, and eventually you'll start to see some results. We don't have to have the rest of the organization know necessarily, right? We just need to show results. Other questions?
Do you have any tips for, when things kind of feel like everything's wrong and there's, you just have everything to pick apart? How can we get over that and focus on the recognition piece when everything seems like it's on fire?
Great. Are you talking about with an individual or in general?
Just in general, as a leader, sometimes your whole day is fires and bad. And how do you get out of that mindset to focus on recognizing people? Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good question because it's so easy to stay in that moment if we took a quiz and it said, should we take a moment to recognize to make us feel better and to get out of that, we'd get it all right? We know that that's going to help us do that. This is going to be a habit. And so this is why we want to practice this. And maybe that day isn't a day you can do it. You might not have capacity that day. But when you start doing this routinely, you're going to get better at it. I had a very stressful a couple of weeks with some family events. And I took a couple of days for me to finally say, all right, I need to do something. I retweeted people's work to help lift them up, and I felt better. So we know that works, but to get out of it, it's okay if that day you can't do it. But recognize that, is it easier to keep focusing on that and replace people? Or is it easier to just pause and take a moment? What I would recommend with our coworkers, help each other. So when we are feeling that way, which is probably more often than not, help each other with that. Can you recognize that person who you see really having a hard time this week? Can you remind that person, hey, remember tips? Do that with one person, you're gonna feel better. And then once you do this routinely in your head, it's going to be normal for you even in the midst of the fire. Yeah, it's hard. And it's okay to not feel that you wanna do it that day. That's okay. Other questions?
Can you share more about the concept of equitability versus equality, and questions that surface often are around, if you can't compliment everyone, should you still be doing it?
Great question. Really great question. First of all, this is why we're safe to do private, right? And it's okay if they tell each other, I got recognized. I don't know if they will or not. But the second thing is, who gets recognition and who doesn't, right? So if someone isn't pulling their weight and they're not doing well, and if you use the tips and you can honestly be truthful and specific and an impact, then recognize them. If you cannot think of one thing, then don't. And so we especially going private with this is really important. Now, new employees, are they having a big impact? Not really, new associates, but what we can do sometimes, if we really need to stretch it and we really need to reach, the impact can be people's effort. You might compliment their effort rather than what they did. We've got to be truthful though, or it will not help at all It is better to do nothing. So someone not pulling their weight, they're really a problem employee, you can still say, hey, I noticed you made a good effort today. I noticed that. And then an impact. Don't forget, an impact can be about you. You can say, you would not believe the stress that reduced for me today. I want to thank you for that. That's sincere, right? So we're building people up, but we have got to be truthful. Or don't do it. Great question. Reflecting back to employees when their work matters is of critical importance. Today is the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to learn, and I'm hoping, though, that you walk away with skills and tools that help you think about how you can reboot recognition that isn't working in your organization at Benedictine and complement what is. So this is a team effort, though, and it starts with you modeling this and bringing this to the rest of this team, the associates at Benedictine, and for anyone directing the work of others so that they can learn this. And then this can be an everyday occurrence, and you can keep your best people.